Let's begin with perhaps the most disrespected team in the NFL right now, and that is the Buffalo Bills. Yes, the Buffalo Bills. Everybody, I'm saying everybody, thinks this team is going to take a step back. But what if they don't? What if the Buffalo Bills actually have a season like the Chiefs just had, where everybody's ruling them out? Everybody thinks they don't have the receiver talent. Everybody thinks these past couple of years, right? Kansas City, they're not the same. They don't have Tyreek Hill. What are they going to do? Their receivers, they can't catch. What if the Buffalo Bills getting rid of Stephon Diggs actually leads to the most successful Josh Allen Buffalo Bills teams that we've ever seen? I'm throwing that out there for you. Now, I genuinely do believe that this team is going to be good. Now, I wonder how good they're going to be. But what I'm flat out disgusted with is the lack of respect for this team. First of all, they have Josh Allen on the team. That's like automatic 9, 10, 11 wins. Automatic. I don't even have to look at the schedule. You can blindfold me, bro. I don't need to look at it. When you have number 17 on your team, the biggest one-man show in the NFL, you don't need much else to get 10 wins. I'm just not going to lie. I mean, take it from a Brady fan, okay? And I'm not saying Josh Allen is Tom Brady, but what I am saying is when you have a Tom Brady, when you have a Peyton Manning, when you have a Patrick Mahomes, when you have a Lamar Jackson, when you have a Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, when you have one of these elite players in their prime, they are winning 10 games. And there are people out there that think they might not win the division. There are people out there that think they might miss the playoffs. And to me, unless the New York Jets go out there and put all the pieces together that they could possibly put together, which might be a little bit of foreshadowing for this video, right? Unless that happens, I am putting all of my money, shove it into the middle of the table, because I'm gambling it on Josh Allen and the Bills to win the division. And let's just go past Josh Allen for a second, because I think we all understand they have number 17. But what else do they have? And that's what people are kind of critiquing. I just think genuinely this roster is underrated, leading again to the underrated, undervalued, overlooked, disrespected team that they are. First of all, they had a strong running game late last season. This was a team that was not driven by their passing game. This was a team that was not a spread and shred approach. This was a team that was run the ball, play action. Josh Allen's going to scramble around and make a few plays outside structure. He's going to run, right? James Cook's going to catch the ball 7 times a game. They're going to throw it to their tight ends. And yeah, Stephon Diggs was there, maybe as their one or their number one receiver. But if you actually look at his production last year, especially in those final 8 games of the regular season and in the playoffs, he was averaging like 9 yards a catch. He didn't even have like 400 yards in 8 games. He didn't even have 2 touchdowns in 8 games. He had 1. I mean, so like, yeah, Stephon Diggs is gone, but let's actually look at the depth of the roster, the depth of the offense now. The skill positions are greater. They're deeper, right? They added a first-round receiver, basically, the 33rd pick in the draft. They feel Keon Coleman can give them a complement to their receiving core. They added a first-round tight end last year in Dalton Kincaid, who had a nice little rookie season. Right, just because Sam Laporta had a better one, don't overlook what Dalton Kincaid produced last year and expect him to produce even more in year 2, because typically tight ends take a little bit longer to break out, and year 2 should be a massive leap for Dalton Kincaid. A tight end that I think could catch 75-plus balls this season. Dawson Knox is a vertical tight end. He can get down the field in a hurry. He's a good athlete. He can create yards after catch. Khalil Shakir is one of the most underrated receivers in football. Curtis Samuel has never had a quarterback. I mean, never. Maybe Cam Newton for like a year. That's it. Curtis Samuel can play running back. He can play slot. He can play outside. He can fly. You can give him a handoff. He's a dangerous weapon. Right? Like, what are we talking about here? This team had Gabe Davis last year. Gabe Davis isn't any good. I'm sorry to give that information, to provide that to you. Gabe Davis is not very good. He's not. Okay? Chase Claypool, Mac Hollins, these big targets on the outside, one of them could work out to be just as productive as Gabe Davis. I mean, Chase Claypool certainly has more pure talent than Gabe Davis, and if he's motivated, Josh Allen could get the most out of him because Claypool hasn't been any good since Ben Roethlisberger left. He hasn't had a good quarterback either. That's something to point out. Marcus Valdez-Scantling. This guy's been like one of the top receivers for the Chiefs and one of the more reliable receivers for the Chiefs, the back-to-back Super Bowl champs. So, I mean, that's a decent floor receiver for you. So, yeah, everyone's worried about their receiving core, but I would argue when you kind of get rid of the notion that Stephon Diggs was Stephon Diggs, and you actually look at the receiving core for what it is now, and then you add on to the layer of this offensive line is pretty solid. They can run the ball. Josh Allen can run it himself. They can run multi-tight end formations. They've got a lot more speed at receiver now. They've got more size at receiver now. They've got more depth. And you kind of look at, okay, now Joe Brady's going to have a full offseason to work with Allen and kind of figure out what's going to work for them this year, mold that offense. I think Brady's been an underrated coordinator throughout his NFL career in Carolina and Buffalo. And I thought he did a smooth job of taking over that operation last year. And you've got to realize that this was a team that was already phasing out Stephon Diggs. They're moving on in a different direction. And that direction could make them play more cohesive overall football. What could actually help Josh Allen play more mistake-free football and take less, allow him to have less on his shoulders, is what I'm trying to say. So then you go to the defense, where the Bills have always been very solid under Sean McDermott. I would say that you would have a point if you were to say this is one of the least talented Bills defenses on paper that we've seen in recent years. But that's the thing about the Bills defense. They've never really been about the individual talent. They've been about depth. They've been about cohesion. They've been about health. Last year, it was about health, right? That's the reason they ultimately could not stop a nosebleed against Kansas City. Half their defense was hurt, and some of that was age, because a lot of these guys were getting older, and they were paying these guys some chunks of money that they were not worth. There's still one of those individuals on this team, but they've sort of flipped the script and gone a little bit younger and a little bit faster, and they've gone in a different direction with their defense subtly, I think. But there's still many of the fundamental pieces. First of all, they get back their best defensive player who missed a majority of last year, Matt Milano, who's one of the 5 best linebackers in the NFL. End conversation. Okay. Yeah, they lost big names like Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and Leonard Floyd and Tre'Davious White. But the only one I would actually argue is a big loss is Leonard Floyd. That's really it. Because Micah Hyde was not the same player, and he's still out there, I believe, as a free agent if they want to bring him back. Jordan Poyer was certainly not the same player. He can't really run anymore. And Tre'Davious White had multiple Achilles injuries and never really played for them the last couple of seasons. So people are looking at the names they've lost. Mitch Morse, Stephon Diggs, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. They're thinking about the last few years of the Bills, and they're being like, how could they ever recover? Well, let's face the facts that those players were not really the same at the end here. And a lot of this team was built off of, we have Josh Allen and he's just going to save us. He's Superman. Now I feel like They've still got Greg Rousseau, who's a really good player, their best pass rusher. Ed Oliver is a really good player, their best interior defensive lineman. They managed to keep Daquan Jones, who's a really good player for them. They signed up Austin Johnson, Dwayne Smoot, Deshaun Williams, solid veteran depth players for their defensive line. Dwayne Carter, I like that pick in the draft from Duke. Solid run defender at defensive tackle. AJ Epinesa, I think, is kind of underrated. Von Miller, will he be better than last year? He certainly can't be worse. You know, he's going to be a year removed from the major injury. He had 0 sacks last year. He had only 3 tackles in how many games? That's disgusting. I mean, talk about, he had some stuff going on off the field as well. So maybe he can get his head straight and maybe he could really bring them something in a rotation role. But even if he doesn't, I think they have enough here. Maybe not the same Bills D-line that they had a couple years ago, 2, 3, 4 years ago. But last year, it's not like they had much. And they were still, a kick away from tying the Super Bowl champs and taking it to overtime with half the defense. Because half the defense was hurt. Terrell Bernard is a good player. Dorian Williams, solid backup. Nicholas Moreau, nice pickup in free agency. Very solid backup. He played over 1,000 snaps for a playoff team last year in Philadelphia. Even Spector, I don't mind as a linebacker. But the secondary, I think, is a lot better than people talk about. Christian Benford's one of the most underrated players in the NFL, and I put him in my most underrated video, which, by the way, once we get 100 likes, I'll release my most overrated players in the NFL for every team. So make sure to like that video so that you can get that list. Rasul Douglas, stud. Unreal last year. Teron Johnson, one of the best nickel corners since he's entered the NFL. Cole Bishop, love that draft pick. Taylor Rapp, I've always liked. Mike Edwards, I've always liked. He played really well for the champs last year. They picked up D. Delaney, who's kind of a hybrid safety corner. Never been the biggest fan, but he's played in a good defense for a long time in different spots. So I look at this team and I say, they don't have as many big names. They're not going to blow you away with that depth chart on paper. But they've got a solid offensive line. They'll be able to run the ball. They've got a dynamic running back who can run and catch the football. They've got one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They've got a deep receiving core that has a plethora of different talents. They can attack you in different formations, in different, schemes in terms of, okay, we could have 11 personnel, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. We could go 12 personnel. We could hit you with all this different stuff now this season, and we don't have that distraction in the back of our minds of this one receiver saying, hey, I need the ball, guys. Give me the ball, Josh. Hey, we don't have that distraction anymore, and that might lead to a more cohesive, more together offense and team. Defensively, McDermott always has a solid defense. This is a unit that might start off a little bit rougher than expected, but will grow because they're going to be fundamentally sound and they're going to be very, very well coached. And I think they have a plethora of underrated players. They almost remind me of the Bengals defense, where they don't have any weaknesses, but they might not have any real strengths either. So I am just disgusted at how underrated and overlooked the Bills have become. I just think far too many people are not giving them their due, not giving them their credit. They've won the division every single season since 2020? Ever since Tom Brady left the division, Josh Allen and the Bills have won this division. And I think they deserve that credit. They've been one of the most consistent franchises and teams in the NFL since Sean McDermott got there. Even when Tom Brady was there, they were going to the playoffs. So, I just think the Bills have been really disrespected, and that's why they belong on this list.